as you know, I'm related to Henry V.
Yes.
And we talk about this, or you talk about this in the book. And I've had this debate.
And Charlemagne.
And Charlemagne.
Yeah.
Everybody is, of course. And this is quite interesting because this is notion that you pick up on about this. And I noticed on the royal website, the official royal website, they list all the kings and queens only going back to 1066.
Yeah.
And there's this curious notion that there's this unbroken line of a very distinctly identifiable family. And I did a debate a long time ago, and there was someone, I think it was an aristocrat, suggesting that, some of these people are from the oldest families in Europe. It's like, we're all the same age.
Yes.
All our families are connected.
Yeah,
we're all one
the
big
oldest
family.
family is such a stupid notion. Right, this is what triggers me. In fact, this is why I'm a Republican. The class system is a disease, and it should long ago have been eradicated. It should have gone the way of historic diseases that we no longer have to put up with. And that really is the reason that I'm a Republican. It still infuses so much of our life and our politics in this country.
You talk a bit about the aristocracy being this very small, odd...
yes, small and odd, yes. And yet, people like Jacob Rees, anybody can become an aristocrat. Yeah. You just put on the airs and graces and wait a generation. I mean, that's all that happens. So the likes of Jacob Rees, I think one of Jacob Rees-Mogg's grandfathers was either a coal miner or a truck driver.
Yes.
Wow.
But that bit is edited out because this is what I call the fake family saga. You edit that bit out and then you start talking about how your ancestors came over with William the Conqueror, right?
I really want to ask, I feel like when you said, you just wait a generation, I thought, really? I've never thought about it, but what is the aristocracy?
Well, exactly. So in North, I mean, what is it? What is it? It's a load of self-styled poshos who look down on the rest of the world and who have decided, I mean, I don't even like the term posho because it's giving them a respect they don't deserve. People who believe themselves to be, in no other part of society would we allow someone to believe that they are intrinsically better than anybody else purely by dint of their birth. It's insane. And yet this country continues to go along with it.
I think you said that there's a small group of people that are preoccupied by affectation.
Yeah.
Because it all seems to be so fake, including, they've got all these notions of how to pronounce words and how to speak and how, what cutlery to use at the dinner table. It's all about setting themselves apart from everybody else. It's like, well, we're in this little club. You're not because you don't understand these things.
So the whole you and non-you thing, which... the Mitford, Nancy Mitford, I think was it Nancy? Yes, the Mitford sisters. This notion of you and non-you language, upper class language and non-upper class language.
Right.
So, do you say napkin or do you say serviette? And through these codes of language, you can identify whether somebody has got good breeding or whether that person is from the lower middle classes or the working class, right? Now, everybody, when you talk about you and non-you, people go, it was a joke. She was just having a joke. Nancy was just having a joke about that. No, she wasn't. She was propping it up. And I knew, I mean, I went to boarding school. I spent my youth mixing with people like this. Those people used the correct language. And if somebody said serviette instead of napkin, some people are aghast. Some people think that these old families, so-called, have got some hereditary and inherent right to be better than the rest of us. But of course, and as you identified earlier, we're all descended from monarchs. Yeah. So Danny Dyer goes on Who Do You Think You Are? And discovers he's a descendant of Edward III. That's great. Probably 90% of the people watching that episode were also descended from Edward III.
Yeah.
And then people will say to you, but I don't have any royalty in my family. Yes, you do. You are descended from Charlemagne.
What I find odd, I mean, if people are born into this weird aristocratic world where they're taught that this is the way to behave is one thing, but it's people who aren't in that group who then feel that they have to look up to them.
Yes.
And I remember I lived in Australia for a long time and I came back about 25 years ago. And in Australia, they are much less worried about class. They're much more sort of just talk to you. I mean, there's wealth inequality, definitely, but there's very little class inequality. When I came back, there was a story about a couple of fraudsters who were going in, booking places at tables at nice restaurants, and they booked it saying, "I'm Lord such and such," and they immediately get freebies, credit, whatever, because they are Lord such and such. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you think that makes you a more respectable person? There's another anecdote that when I was living in Bath, there was a Conservative councillor who was a Sir. And he went into like a little corner shop, and there was quite a long queue, and he tried to cut in. And he said, when he was told to go to the back of the queue, they said, "Don't you know who I am?" Oh. And the guy said, "Yes, that's why I'm telling you to go to the back of the queue," which is my attitude. You shouldn't.
So this is the problem with monarchy. Yeah. And as long as it persists, you are never, ever going to have that kind of degree of equality within society, because people will always be brought up to believe that there are other people who are inherently better than them by pure dint of birth. And that should have been got away with 200 or 300 years ago.
It's an institution that doesn't believe in equality. It's not just an obstacle to it. It actually doesn't believe in it, and it believes that it must continue to continue this system, which includes the aristocracy, who are kind of the bulwark for the monarchy. If none of that was there, then the monarchy would be in more trouble. So they kind of sustain this whole sort of network of wealth and power and influence.
That's where my republicanism comes from too. I think it's so sad hearing about the you and the non-you language. I think it's just bullying, and it makes me so upset to think of. I imagine my ancestors who didn't have any money and wouldn't have had any...
Apart from the kings and queens.
Apart from, all my kings and queens ancestors. And just that they were being bullied from far away, in their own world. And it's so... And just brilliant, hardworking, hilarious, warm people being looked down upon by other people makes me so sad.
Yes.
But I was also going to suggest... or ask you what you thought about a plan that Graham and I were talking about in the cafe, because I was saying, since we know that everybody is related to these kings and queens, that Graham potentially could put in a claim to the throne, become king, and then declare that we're just going to do presidents, prorogue the monarchy, and then that would be it. That would be the Republic goal done.
Foolproof plan.
We thought it was foolproof. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a good plan, yeah.
Yeah, okay. We were on board. Great.